For countless decades, tangents have plagued our fair illustrations. Well, now it's time to defeat them! Well, what is a tangent? Mathematically speaking, it's when you get a line that touches the surface of a curve at a single point, but doesn't intersect. And that's a pretty good definition for illustration as well. Sometimes we also consider lines that terminate at a point to be kind of a tangent as well, which is the type of thing that we're going to talk about getting rid of today in the demo. Why is this bad in illustration? Tangents can be kind of problematic in line art because it makes it difficult for the viewer to determine objects and their relation to each other in space. If you have things terminating at the edges or at curves, you can't necessarily determine which one is in front or behind the other. We want our line art to have the clarity so that when someone's looking at it, they can instantly tell where objects are in space. So let's go to the demo and find out how to recognize tangents and a couple of methods to deal with them.
Welcome to Tangent Town. So I'm using Sketchbook Pro 6. I don't think they sell this anymore, but it was new when I got it, and it still apparently works on my machine. So we're gonna give it a try. But it really doesn't matter what software you use, or if you're drawing in your sketchbook on your iPad, on your phone, or wherever, tangents may show up. So I'm gonna show you what to do if one of them rears its ugly head and tries to destroy your composition. You know, if you care about that sort of thing. So let's start with our first example. So we got some boxes. Oops. You can tell I'm very good at drawing straight lines. Boxes and boxes. And I feel like these boxes need some personality, so we're gonna make them into tangent bots. Beep 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 beep. So there's one tangent bot. And of course they have a bit of an overbite. And then this one has a massive underbite. It's like Cubist Haro. Okay, we got our tangent bots. Where are the problematic parts? We got a nasty tangent right here, this corner intersection. And this line isn't exactly doing us any favors. Now, tangents happen in the real world all the time. And I'm not saying that you would never find a situation where objects would line up like this. But for an illustration, for comics, for 2D art, this situation is very confusing because we don't know if the one on the right is floating in the air or if it's pushed back farther away, like if there's an invisible gap in here and there's an alleyway that goes down this way, or maybe, you know, it's floating above the surface. We don't know anything about that. We're just not given enough information. So to fix it, and I'm just gonna copy this because we're gonna return to this example. Let's see. Chunk. We'll turn off the bottom layer. So we are going to fix this tangent. We're gonna get rid of this corner. That corner is more egregious than I think this crossbar. So we're gonna move this little dude in here and hit enter and then erase. Okay, this is a little bit better. Now from a glance, we can tell that there's actual space in between. So this alleyway does it indeed exist. Let me see if I can pull this up again. Delete that. So yeah, there's an alleyway in here, you know, and we can tell that there's some separation between the two monsters, which gives us a better sense of how they are placed in this world, which is great. We can look at it from a glance and see that this one is spaced over here, this one is spaced over here. They're two separate objects. They're not crashing into each other. No one's flying. It's great. If we go the other way, and let's bring back this bar. Erase that. Now it kind of looks like the robots are stuck together, like they're combining or something, or you know, they're attached here. You know, maybe there's like an invisible docking port that they're both attached to, or maybe this is a falling monster and it's falling on its way down. But we have a lot more information here. So just those two subtle changes, either making the one on the left in front or the one on the right in front, gives us a whole lot of visual information at a quick glance. There's no guesswork, and that's great for storytelling. Now, I prefer to physically remove tangents. Anytime there's an intersection like this, I try to make one of the objects overlap one side or the other. But if you've spent a long time on your line art and you just can't bring yourself to destroy something like an intersection like this, there are other ways to deal with tangents. They're not as strong. They don't give you as good results visually. It's not an instant read like it is if you're able to separate something like this out, but you can do it. So I'm going to show you how you could maybe approach getting rid of a tangent without actually getting rid of a tangent. We're going to use color. If you're dealing with line art, one way to push an object towards the back is to actually color your lines a lighter shade. So this case, we're going to use gray. Since we're working on a gray background, we're going to use a gray color to color in the lines of this robot on the right, and it'll push it back into the background. So this will look like an alleyway in between them. So lock that layer, color that. And boom, boom, boom. So it's not as strong as the other treatment, but already, if you squint your eyes, the straight up black lines pop out closer to you and the gray lines push the one to the right farther back. You can also use warm and cool colors to bring something towards the foreground. So if we want to further push this robot on the left forward, we can color it in with some warmer tones. So let's see if we can do this quickly. Let's use a very bright yellow and use our big Copic brush. It's one of the reasons why I like Sketchbook, is because they have all these Copic-like brushes. And then, you know, put this in shade. So bright, warm, saturated colors bring things to the foreground. It makes you notice them a little bit more. So we're going to use more muted, cooler colors for this robot back here. And even if I throw on a brighter highlight, oops, that's too bright. If I throw on, yeah, something like this. Even though we got a fairly nice highlight color here on the right, you can still tell that the robot on the left is a little bit more forward, a little bit more prominent, a little bit closer to you than this Ice Cube Haro thing over here on the right. Ice Cube Haro. So you can use color and tone and saturation to kind of push objects backwards or pull objects forwards and make people notice them a little bit more. Sure, we still have this tangent here, but if you squint your eyes, you'll notice the yellow robot more than this bluish robot, and that brings it forward.
Now that you've seen them, you can never unsee them, and that's kind of the curse of the tangents. Once you notice them, they're everywhere. Tangents occur naturally all the time in the outside world. You'll be walking around and you'll see things line up, and if it was a 2D illustration, it would be very confusing, but because you're in 3D space and there's depth perception and you can focus on things that are close and things that are far, tangents aren't such a big deal. If you're modeling objects and you're modeling scenes in 3D, sometimes when you do a camera move, things are gonna line up where there's a tangent and you move past it because it's 3D, it doesn't really matter. So it's really up to you how fussy you get with your tangents. I personally try my best to avoid them, but if they occur in the illustration and I only see it at the end when I'm coloring something, then I'll use the color method to kind of get rid of that tangent. Tangents showing up in your work doesn't mean you're a bad illustrator. It just means it's something that you weren't necessarily paying attention to when you were laying stuff out. It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It doesn't mean that you're terrible. It doesn't mean that you're not gonna get hired or, get a gig. If the thing looks cool and there happens to be a tangent there, that's fine. But I would encourage you, next time you lay down some sweet ass line art, to try to avoid convergences and tangents, all that kind of stuff. So I hope some of that was helpful for you. If you have a good way of dealing with tangents in your work, please let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please subscribe, share with your friends, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye!